Jess. How are you?
Hey, Shell.
It's been a minute.
It's been a few minutes.
Yep,
I miss our consistent chats together,
I
but
know.
you know,
Um, so we actually have our guests like waiting to come in, so we're going to go quickly through this. I wanted to play. So today our topic is medical narration, something Jess and I
have
periodically
fun.
do. Yes, but it's not our favorite and certainly not our specialty. So I'm going to play one that I did that makes me laugh. Okay, so see if you can hear this. Have you ever confused betaine with cocamidopropylbetaine? Betaine and cocamidopropylbetaine are two very distinct ingredients that may seem alike at first glance. Cocamidopropylbetaine, commonly known as CAPB, is an amphoteric surfactant derived from coconut oil and dimethylaminopropylamine, whereas betaine is an amino acid derivative, sometimes known as trimethylglycine. Natural betaine is extracted. That is
Commonly
Michelle
known,
attempting to do.
commonly known as.
Oh, anyway, so we're gonna actually have somebody coming in right now who's like a little better at this. She's actually known as the expert in medical narration, and that is she's an award-winning voice actor, also a coach, and I'm not gonna say any more. I'm just gonna bring her in because I don't want her to have to wait. And that is Debbie Irwin. Thank you, Debbie, for being with us. We
Yes,
so
thanks for joining
appreciate.
us.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Let me just turn off my notifications so that, if anybody wants me, tough noogies, I'm with the people I want to be with.
There you
And
go.
there we go. All right.
I just did that as well. Thank you. Awesome. So I did a quick intro because you were lovely and early, which is nice. I just said that you are, you're an award-winning voice actor and you're also a coach. And Jess and I were like, we want to do one on medical narration. And then we both looked at each other and we're like, it's not really our thing.
Not really our forte.
So we're like, I feel like we need somebody who's more of an expert on this. And literally, even though I don't think we've really connected too much, I know of you and Jessica knows of you. Both of us were like Debbie Irwin, and then we asked some other people, and they said you too. So somehow you've gotten this reputation as the expert on medical narration. So we were like, yeah, we got to see if she'll come on. So thank you again for coming on. So we appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. I was
Yeah.
listening to some of your work together. Your camaraderie is wonderful, and I'd like to get a glass of wine with you gals.
I would love that. We'll come to New York and
I know. Are you in New York still?
I am in New York. However, I'm upstate.
Okay.
Um,
My husband's from upstate.
where?
Fulton? Nobody knows where that is. It's near Oswego. Oswego?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you?
So I also say I'm in the Berkshires, which is actually Western Mass, because I'm
Yep.
15 minutes from Great Barrington, Mass.
Okay.
And
Been there. Yep.
the Hudson Valley. I'm 30 minutes from Hudson. I'm 2 hours from the GW Bridge in New York City, but I live all the way down by Ground Zero. So it could be 2 hours and 15 minutes or 3 hours and 15 minutes when we make that trip.
Mm.
But luckily, by some act of grace or God or whomever, whatever, in the summer of 2019, I had my Studio Bricks booth built, installed
Nice.
here in the country. And so then when COVID came, it was
You were
just
all ready.
set
That's
up.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I got Source Connect in 2019 too, not knowing that it would be so important the next year. So like sometimes happy accidents, right? So
There you go. Right.
awesome.
Happy accidents.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a good way of putting it. So where are you two located again? Help me
Yes.
remember.
I'm in Northwest Pennsylvania.
I'm in
Okay.
Boston.
You're in
Austin.
Yeah,
Oh,
Boston.
or Boston.
Not
Or
Austin. Boston.
Not to be
Yeah, yeah.
confused with Austin.
Not to be confused with Boston.
And Northwest Pennsylvania is like where?
Very
North
cold.
north of Pittsburgh, south of Erie. So I'm kind of in between Cleveland, Buffalo, Pittsburgh.
Gotcha.
Like
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere.
It's a
And
good
it's
place
like
to be.
major.
I love it.
Her view is gorgeous. She takes pictures. She's a great photographer. She takes pictures of this beautiful view but it's also like really cold there.
It's freezing.
It's
It's freezing today. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, when it gets really cold, it doesn't matter where you are. Cold is cold. And, somebody said the other day, the temperature doesn't matter. What you wear does. So
Does pajamas count all during the winter?
Yeah, it's like the air hurts my face. I'm like, why do I live somewhere where the air hurts my face? But it's fine. I
Where in
can't imagine living anywhere else. So,
where in Boston?
I'm actually like I used to be closer to Boston. I'm in Framingham now, so near Natick and out that way. So it's a little westish of Boston. But I've
Yeah.
been to Tanglewood. I saw Tony Bennett at Tanglewood
Hey,
way
with or
back.
without Lady Gaga.
Yes, yes. But alone. No, no, without her. Diana Krall was with him.
Oh,
In
yeah.
2000, way back. I just had one of my retina surgeries and I went there with a patch. And I didn't know about I didn't realize that the whole like what do you call it? The altitude like I didn't know about the pressure of the different. So I was a little nervous the whole time I was there because of the what is it?
Yeah, elevation.
Elevation. I was like, I don't want this to be a problem, you know, so I was a little stressed, but and we almost got struck by lightning at the concert. Literally a person next to me, like two people over, lightning struck and she was bleeding. Like I was like, what is happening?
Wow.
It
That's
was like,
pretty scary.
okay, that was too close for comfort. Yeah, I know. So
Too
anyway,
bad.
we wanted to bend your ear a little bit about, I mean, obviously you do a lot of different things and do you coach specifically in medical narration or different things?
Yes,
Okay.
and
And
um, mostly medical. However, script analysis is really sort of the foundation of understanding any script, right? And
mm,
getting coaching. I've coached people in political and um, and um, narration of all kinds,
okay,
basically. But you're right. I am known for medical narration. It is my niche. It is where the bulk of my work comes from, and I love it. And and I love helping other people to understand it too. And I think it's an industry that's not going away. And while none of us are unimpacted by AI, I think that this is still an area that um, requires real voices. And in my conversations with some of my clients, uh, I know that I know that to be true.
yeah,
They may use AI in Scratch, but sometimes they're really not looking. They don't want to do that because they don't want the client or the CBC, as I call it, the client behind the client, to think that that's the voice
okay,
and get accustomed to that,
okay.
because then they have a hard time sort of disengaging from that and saying, yeah, but actually we're going to use a real person. So anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent. My point is simply that I think there's more business, more work to be done
I think it's
for
really
us.
would be really hard for an AI to pronounce some of these words. Like you know what I mean? Like because I know like they mispronounce certain things anyway. So that I think you're right. I think that's maybe like an area of voiceover that's maybe a little more protected from AI.
So I don't know if you're familiar. I do a medical word of the day post on Instagram.
No.
And for the start of the year, what I did was I showed a comparison of a recording that I had done previously on a medical word of the day of, I forget what the word was. And I then put that script into AI
Mhm.
because I have created a digital double in 11 labs so I could
Okay.
experiment with it. And and then I posted that as a comparison.
Oh wow, I got to check that out.
And you know, some of the words are mispronounced incorrectly two times, like two different ways. At one point, the narration just speeds up for no apparent reason. And I forget what the third thing that was like, obviously, just maybe it's another mispronunciation. Um, so I think that for all, pretty much for all AI, you can't just content in and usable content out. It has to
Right.
be seen by a human. It has to be edited. It has to
Right.
be reviewed for accuracy. So again, I still think that we have work.
I saw your freebies on your thing and I was going to ask you if you know off the top of your head, maybe you don't know off the top of your head, but the medical word for ice cream headache.
Yes, sphenopalatine ganglioneuralgia.
I knew she'd know it.
Oh, that's
It was like the first one. I was like, she's gonna know this one, the top of her head. Like she's gonna just know it. That's awesome.
I just, because it's so fun, right? Who the heck, for something as mundane and common, mundane and repetitive as an ice cream headache, right? Something so, you know, to then, give it this name, sphenopalatine ganglioneuralgia.
Do you
You
ever
know?
do that at parties where you're like, oh my goch, I have such a, and then I will never be able to say it, but because I
No,
would totally throw that around everywhere.
sphenopalatine,
Pheno, palatine,
palatine, sphenopalatine,
palatine,
ganglio,
ganglio, neuralgia.
neuralgia, neuralgia, ganglio.
Palatine ganglioneuralgia. It's the flow. I think when I've done the medical narration, it's like the flow, and I have to, phonetically like spell it out like how it makes sense to my brain, and I have to research all the, I'm sure you do, that's part of your process is like researching all the things. But it's at the end of the day, it's so hard to get it to, again, you'll see when you see this thing. I played one before we came in with you that I did. I mean, I got through it. I don't know if it was good.
Hear it.
You want to hear it? Oh gosh. All right,
Yes.
we'll play it again. This is embarrassing. All right, here we go. Hold on. All right.
Have you ever confused betaine with cocamidopropyl betaine? Betaine and cocamidopropyl betaine are two very distinct ingredients that may seem alike at first glance. Cocamidopropyl betaine, commonly known as CAPB, is an amphoteric surfactant derived from coconut oil and dimethylaminopropylamine, whereas betaine is an amino acid derivative, sometimes known as trimethylglycine. Natural betaine is
What?
extracted from sugar beets.
All right,
Betaine.
stop talking. Okay.
Wow, look at you go, girl.
That
What are you
was
talking
so,
about?
did that sound at all natural though?
Yes, yeah, you were rolling those words off your tongue like you speak them every day.
So hard. A quick embarrassing story. This was like, I don't know, 15 years ago. I remember this was a place you had to go into, and I went into, they hired me even though this is not my thing. And it was like, as you probably know, like a longer script. I do mostly short form. And my husband drove me because I had like a boot on my foot, and it was like a snowstorm. It was like, and he was in the waiting room. Okay. And this session probably should have taken an hour. It took almost 3 hours. It was like, I just wanted to leave. I just was like, this was hell. And I was not as, skilled at it as I am now, even though I wouldn't say I'm skilled at it, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't have the script ahead of time, so I didn't get to do any of that. It was like, and it was live on a call. It was the most horrific. To this day, my husband jokes about being like so embarrassed for me because he could hear me struggling through the 3 hours, and he could hear it outside. And at the end of the session, I just said to the audio person, I just said, I'm so sorry. I'm really good at what I do. This is not what I do. I have like 3 people I can refer you to that are amazing at this. And I'm going to discount the set. Like I discounted the session to what it should have been. And he was appreciative of that. And he actually to this day still uses 2 of those people that I referred him to. But like, again, it's like a running joke in our house. My husband's like, don't want to do that session again. It was so awful.
So, what was the lesson for you in that?
I came home, and I think I might have made a post about it. I was just kind of like, it's okay if something's just not your jam. Like it doesn't bring me joy. And I've done it with people that have worked with me on other things. And I'm good at some of your stuff on your site. You have like, when you're talking like a normal thing, but you're talking about medical stuff. I do that all the time, and that's fine. When it's like, it's when it has these really sciencey words that are really hard to get off the tongue.
So I would suggest that there was one really important thing in that whole interaction. And that was that you weren't given the script ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because had you had it, you would have been able to go through your process and rehearse. I would never walk into a live medical session without seeing the script.
Right.
No, it's like
you would have struggled too.
You're walking into the lion's den. You've got no idea what's coming, right? You have no protection. You're not able to rehearse. I mean, you're immediately handicapped.
Yeah.
And one of the things I say that I love about medical narration is that usually you get the scripts with ample time ahead of what the session is, because they know they've been planning it for months and months and months, and they want to find out about your availability a month before. And my first question for any job is script, 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 script. And I have to work with those scripts. They, the words don't just flow, on a first read. It takes work, not only just to get the pronunciations right, but to understand the script, to understand what it is that you're saying, to find the nuance in it and the story, you know. So
Don't be so hard on myself.
yes, yes, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the I would say the only mistake that you made was saying, I have to have this script ahead of time.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
can do my homework on my time instead of a 1 hour session becoming a 3 hour session.
Yeah.
That's then hard for everybody.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I mean, yeah, I think I just took it as like, I'm not good at this, when in reality, and I have done, as like I played that thing, I've done some, I find it really hard and cumbersome and a lot of extra work. Like you said,
Yes.
you're not just going into the session and reading, like I'm a like, print and read and you're good to go kind of girl. And so for me, that's like a lot of extra work, ahead of
That's
time.
that's a really good point.
That
It's not rip and read.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know because that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, how do these people just read it and it sounds natural? It's because they've had it ahead of time. They've been able to look everything up, and you don't see that part. You only hear the final piece.
right. Right. And people who are really good at what they do, they make it look easy. Think of Barishnikov and, Joshua Bell and all the other, masters. Believe me, I'm not comparing myself to them, but but um, it's an easy way to see how, my God, they're just up in the air and down, or the ice skaters. We don't see the hours and days and weeks and months and years of grueling work.
What kind of resources do you have then because what I find is that you can't just search up certain medical terms on YouTube because they're just not there. And I've used Youglish to find, certain medical terms, if a doctor is talking on video. But are there other resources that you use to be able to look something up and know how to pronounce that name?
Yes, yes, there are a variety of resources that I use, one of which is Webster's Medical Dictionary. I also use Cambridge Dictionary, which has UK and US pronunciations. And I use Medline Plus, which is a NIH site. And I use, and the words not every word will show up in all of these places. FYI. So, but I'm in Webster's Medical almost every day.
Wow.
So the Medline is another good one, and then there's one that I can never remember the name of, but it's like nurse blah 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 blah. I can find it for you and put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Which is another terrific resource. So those are when you're having to do the work on your own. Ideally, you're getting that information from your client, and that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And ideally you don't have, if you have to ask them, ideally you're asking them that question along with any other question that you have about the script, because you've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb because you've had a chance to review it days ahead of time. And when it comes to pronunciation, I used to, never again, ask somebody, well, how do you pronounce this word? Right. So the problem with that is A, I'm making them do the work. B, my MO should be and is, let me make this as easy for you as possible. And C, I have no guarantee that the way they are going to write it back to me is going to be clear and or accurate, because many people don't know how to write a word phonetically
Right.
and indicate which syllable should be accented, etc. So what I do is I'll say, this word, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Is it blah, blah, blah? And I'll write it out phonetically with a, bold and uppercase on the syllable that gets accented. And also add, which rhymes with na na na.
Right.
Or
No, you have to do that. Yeah.
TTT, which rhymes with Tahiti, Or is it something else that I'm not aware of, so that they can just easily go, yeah, it's that one, right? Beyond that, you do have to be careful when you're looking on the web and you're finding videos, because not everybody pronounces, let's say, a drug name the same. Even people in the same company don't necessarily pronounce a drug name the same. And if people are not Native American speakers, not Native English speakers, their accents can throw you off as well. So at that point, I'm like trying to triangulate the information to come to what I think is the, most accurate. And then there's always picking up the phone and calling the company in the case of a drug name. Hi, my name's Debbie and I'm working on a project for your company and I need to confirm how to pronounce, drug larizumab or whatever.
A lot of research.
At
A
a
few
time.
times, yeah, the few times I've done it, I did all that research, and I even got on with there was a live session, and they got on and they were like I said, okay, this is what I researched and this is what it said, and they weren't sure. They were like, okay, so it was kind of like I did the work of, but
And you
again,
say it a lot. So it's like if I don't know the right way to say it, that's a lot of editing later that needs to happen. And
you do mostly, I would think medical narration, you do mostly like independently versus a live session. Is that not a true thought?
I don't know that it's mostly independent. A lot of it is directed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, not all of it. Um, I don't really know what the ratio is. I'd have to take a look at that.
Mm.
Uh,
I just
but
think it's better when you're on your own, because then you could like mess it up a few times and get it until you get it really smooth and stuff, versus like in front of people, it's harder,
well, I do that work on my own ahead of time before I get into the session,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
that by the time I get into the session, I'm really confident.
Yeah.
And it goes quickly,
Nice.
it's kind of a 1 or 2 take sort of thing. And my clients are confident that they know that I've done my work and that it's going to be an easy session. It's not going to be a painful session.
Yeah.
Said, have I ever had problems? Yeah. There was a session I had where, one of the words at the top, I guess I had in my rehearsing been practicing it wrong, whatever. And I had a really hard time getting it right. And I kept stumbling, and this is the opening paragraph. And finally, I said something I never said before, which is, let's skip this. Let's continue with the script and we'll come back to it. And we did, So, in my coaching with people, I tell them, it's incumbent on us to take care of ourselves. It's not common to find somebody on the other end who's looking out for our best interest, because they're busy with their own stuff, right? There are some engineers who totally have your back and you feel it and you know it. So the point just being, if you need something, ask for it, be it a break, be it, to come back to something, be it, whatever. It's okay. It's okay to ask. We feel, I think, a lot of times like, oh, I should know this, or, oh, I should be able to, or what have you. So
I think that they, like the few times I've been on it, they've been actually really kind, because I think they know it can be hard, a really hard kind of session with those things. So they were kind of like, almost like they're like, well, we couldn't do this. We appreciate that you've done all that research and stuff like this. So
right.
yeah.
Yes, for sure. They'll often say that. They'll
Yeah.
often say that. And that's, affirming,
Yeah, for sure. We'll put in, Jessica's really good about putting in the notes. So the resources that you said, she'll put in the notes, and obviously
Yeah.
how to contact you for coaching and any of that sort of thing, right, Jess?
oh, yes, absolutely. We want to make sure people can contact you, Debbie. I think you just have a wealth of information, and it's so hard to pull all of that in just a few minutes, right? And I've noticed, like when Michelle was telling her story, I could see you listening as a coach, and you kind of boiled all of it down to, because she was basically saying, here's where I'm stuck.
Uh-huh.
And, what's the real challenge? And I could see you just going, okay, here. And so maybe, Michelle, you have a career in medical narration now.
I don't know if it brings me joy. So I mean, I won't say no to it if it's a client that's worked with me and they like my voice, but I don't know if I'm going to like
It's okay if you don't like it.
fight for trying to get a lot more of it. I mean, maybe I'll become, who knows? You never know.
Yeah.
Anything could happen,
Well,
right?
you know, I believe in enjoying the work that we're
Yeah,
doing. Life
true.
is, there's
For
enough
sure.
pain and misery out there
Yeah.
in the world. We don't have
Yeah.
to bring it into the booth voluntarily.
Right.
Exactly.
I have one last question that I have is just quickly tell me about the voice of the Statue of Liberty. That's pretty cool. I know it's not medical narration, but it's
Yeah,
pretty
no,
cool.
I know. Well, when people ask me, what's my work, I describe it in terms of a bell curve, right? And the bulk of it is narration, be it medical and corporate, what have you. And then out in the tails are some of the fun, outlier stuff, like museum audio tours. I've done a number of
that.
those. Love, love, love that work. Um, Voices for video games and video trailers. So being the voice of the Statue of Liberty, it was on an audio tour uh,
Cool.
many years ago. So people would get on the boat and, the audio tour, and, you're going around, you're going to Ellis Island, and then you're going to the statue. And as you're passing the statue, she speaks.
What did she say? I have to know what she said. Is it important?
You're tired, you're poor, right? What else would she say?
That's true.
That's a thing of the past. The more recent notable fun outlier was being the voice of the Minnesota Vikings for the 24-25 season during their home games. They have now I'm not a sports person, so this was totally educating Rita here. Um, what that whole experience is like. I took my kids to a game in December, and before the game starts, there's all kinds of hoopla going on in the stadium, and so they create. There are people dancing. They've got video. Home blah blah blah. So I narrated the video that played on the jumbotron for their pregame show. Blah
Aw,
blah blah blah.
love
So
that.
that was fun.
Yay, congratulations.
It wasn't necessarily sports narration or like the sports promo type of thing. It was more of your narration, but it was for the Vikings. Yeah.
They were looking for a voice like Kate Blanchett in The Lord of the Rings, and
Yes.
and they
Fun.
found me. So yeah, I have been hired more than once for what I call an evil British bitch queen.
That's awesome. That's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, it was sort of Norse mythology, and it was not my usual voice. Um, yeah, I just did a blog post about it actually last week because I could finally talk about it. Finally
All
got
right.
it out right before the Super Bowl. Otherwise, it would have been like ho hum, old news. So, how
Thank
long
you.
have you guys been doing this, and what kind of feedback do you get? And by the way, I love your booth. Like, it is just so it's so white and pretty
Yeah,
and
she looks like Star Wars.
spaceship-y, right? I heard you guys talking about, right?
It was black,
Get
and I was
bored.
like, I started doing coaching as well, and I thought I don't want to have this like black dark box as I'm like trying to help people like make big life decisions, and so I was like, add a butterfly and make it brighter. So yeah, I like
Oh, I love it.
A
Yeah, I love it.
stormtrooper. She looks like a
Storm.
stormtrooper.
So you coach in general VO or life
Not in
coaching?
not in voiceover. This is more like life and leadership coaching.
Oh,
I have kind
great.
of a background in entrepreneurship and, I've done voiceover and radio for a long time. So I don't know, 15 years back and forth between, starting off in radio and college radio and going and, and then doing podcasts. And then that led into more voiceover work. And so, yeah, that's kind of my path.
And I'm an actor first. I'm improv, 25 years of murder mysteries and improv shows on the weekends and evenings. Always had a full-time job and got laid off from that 12 years ago and went full-time voiceover. So I've been full-time voiceover for 12 to 13-ish years.
You find each other.
I feel like we knew of each other and then we met at one of the
We knew
conferences.
friends of friends, and then we met at VO Atlanta. It was one of those moments I remember. Maybe you have a different memory, but like how like you pass someone, like we literally crossed paths, and we're like, I need to know who you are.
Yes, yes.
But it was like, but we got to go catch a plane, and you're leaving, and like let's catch up over email, even though we met in person.
Yeah. And we just liked each other immediately and yeah, had a natural rapport and the rest is history.
So are the two of you accountability buddies outside of this podcast, or?
We
Not
did
really.
start with Michael.
Oh yeah, that duh.
That's new.
Yeah, that's new. We just started with a guy with Michael Clark. We're doing accountability. He's like one of our listeners, so he will hear that. Michael, shout out to you.
Shout out to you, Michael.
Shout out to Michael. And it's so hard. I was a member of one with like 5 other people, and we had that for like 4 years, and then it died down. It's so hard. And I've had an accountability buddy for about 5 years, and then I was with a group that was like 3 guys and me, and that we called it like 3 men and a baby. I'm the baby, I guess. But that fizzled out quickly. It's so hard. But yeah, I mean, Jess and I aren't like are trying to do this new thing. Yeah, we're gonna try to do a little accountability, but those are hard to keep up, like I feel like, but I have kept a few of them up. So do you have accountability people?
Yeah, I have an accountability buddy partner, and Tracy Lindley,
Okay.
and
Oh, we know Tracy. Yes, she's been on the show. I love her. She's
yeah, she's great. And I have a stand-up group every Monday morning that we've had for, I don't know, we were thinking about this the other day, maybe 13 years or something. And then I have a
Wow.
monthly mastermind group that's been going on for probably just as long. These were outgrowths of FAFCON.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I've heard
back in
great
the-
things
back
about
in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to VO Atlanta for my first time ever next month.
Yeah, it's March, right? Yeah.
About,
I feel like these are great places where you can really get to know people more on a deeper level. Like there's a lot of crap stuff that happens, and you just kind of ignore that and get to know people on a deeper level because we're
Live
literally
this life.
all on the same boat.
For sure.
Sure.
Little padded rooms by ourselves so connecting to people is such a huge
Yeah.
part. So we really appreciate you coming on. Thank
Yes,
you so
thank
much.
you, Debbie. We appreciate it.
Thank
Before we
you.
go, do you have any kind of last minute or like kind of something you can leave if someone's just starting in the voiceover industry or just kind of getting their feet wet and they really don't know much about medical narration? Should they pursue it? Should they pursue something else? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, you have to be attracted to the material, because if you're not, it's not worth the effort, right? And in fact, the course that I created, my first asynchronous course called the Beginner's Guide to the Basics of Medical Voiceover, really has you asking yourself, is this a good fit for me? Because these are the components that are involved. This is what's expected of you. This is how things work. This is how, this is what that world looks like. This is how jobs, are found without being, this is a marketing tool for you to find jobs. And it has nothing to do with performance either. So actually, if somebody was curious, not to be self-promoting, but I would say, how else are you going to know unless you sort of learn a little bit more about it, right? If you know that tough terminology freaks you out, then I'd say, forget it. If that doesn't freak you out, then yeah, take the next step. And I tell people that tongue twisting terminology is not the hardest part of it, because if you practice it, you can learn it as long as you're not afraid of it. What's harder is the text, the dense text, because you could have a sentence that's 5 lines long and none of the words can be hard to say, but you can still not understand the sentence. And that's where it can be a little more challenging. So the people who are attracted to this genre tend to be attracted to some of these more complicated challenges.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
And I love that you have a course because that literally saves so much time and money. Just taking the time to know, is this right for me or not? Or maybe I'll save it, for the 3rd or 4th venture.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of people come to me who do have a background in some field of medicine, and it's not a prerequisite. And even though they think, oh, well, this makes me qualify because I can say those tough words, I tell them the same thing. I said, you know what? Yes, you have a wealth of knowledge that's, a sliver of the
Parallel
entire
to that. Yeah.
world, right? But where you really have an advantage is when it comes time to marketing yourself, because then you can get into groups and make connections with people who are from your past, and you can be in those rooms authentically. My course, I guess, would be,
Yeah.
you know, a simple, easy way of getting an overview of what it's like.
Okay, we'll reach out to make sure we have the right connections to all these things. Then we'll put them on our show notes for everyone. And thank you again for spending some time
you.
with us today.
Thanks, Debbie. We
Yeah,
appreciate
it was
it.
great to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
You as
Yes,
well.
Shell and Jess. Jess and Shell. So cute.
Thank you
You're
so
even
much.
better in person.
Have
All
a
right.
great day.
Thanks, you
And
too.
thanks. All right, bye.